Hey, everybody. I am Dr. Andy Roark, and this is the Uncharted Podcast. Guys, we got a great one for you today. This is really fun. We have Brenda. We have a technician pseudonymed as Brenda who is disappearing when things get busy. They find other things to do. They're not in the treatment room. The staff has brought this to our attention. They are getting kind of resentful. They're starting to be mumbly when things are super busy. Somebody goes, "Where's Brenda? Where's Brenda?" And we're starting to hear these things. And Brenda is always sort of conscientiously doing something that is not around where the action is. And so we need to have a conversation with her. And that's what we get into. Is Brenda dodging work? Is Brenda trying to keep the easy jobs? Is Brenda taking an exorbitant amount of time to clean cages so they don't have to hustle with the rest of the team? I don't know, but we're going to have to try to figure that out. So guys, let's talk about what we do when we've got somebody who disappears when the work gets hard. Gang, let's get into this episode.
And now, the Uncharted Podcast.
And we are back. It's me, Dr. Andy Roark, and the one and only Stephanie. She works hard for the money, so hard for it, honey, Goss. So you better treat her right.
I'm glad that you finally used that. I'm glad you finally used that song because
I can't believe I haven't used that before. I don't remember it, but it seems like in the 6-7 years we've been doing this now, which is insane. I can't believe I haven't used that before. I saw this thing online and somebody said 45 years ago, Dolly Parton wrote 9 to 5 and we were all like, yeah. And then we didn't do anything about it. And now we work 8 to 6 and it's on us.
It's very true. It's very true.
Like, it's really funny. I was listening to that recently and I was like, she nails it. Like all of the complaints that people have today, she had 45 years ago.
And also, did that make you, like, when I saw that, two things occurred. One, I was like, oh, we actually got worse, not better, number one. And number two, I feel old AF because I remember the first time I saw that movie.
Yes. So first of all,
like,
we are old AF. We are old AF. You're getting there.
I have the gray hair to prove it.
Oh yeah. Oh man. So we are old AF. Yeah. And you know, I was reading this. I'm gonna flex right now. I was reading some Ralph Waldo Emerson recently. As I do. And Ralph, 100%. Like, yes, I was sitting on my porch.
Getting into poetry.
Thinking about the weather.
Okay.
Reading some poetry.
Okay.
Basically, I'm one step away from a pipe, you know?
And a bird feeder.
Oh, I got the bird feeders. I was considering my garden, thinking about some Emerson. And so Ralph, as I think of him, says that he does not think society advances. Okay. He says that every time we make an advancement, we give up other things. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so it's like, ooh, we create an assembly line and now we all just make freaking widgets.
Right.
And we have these cell phones and now we're tied to our jobs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I mean, there are some things, because I've been thinking about this a lot. And it's like, it's hard for me to say that medicine hasn't advanced. Like we have come in 100 years. That's hard to walk back. And I don't see a lot of downsides. However, in almost every other aspect of life, like for every advancement that we have made, I don't know, here you go. Here's the trade-off in medicine. 100 years ago, there was a doctor that you knew who came to your house and who knew your family and genuinely tried their best to be there for you. And we have given that up in exchange for a lot better drugs and specialists. And equipment. But like if you don't do their little niche specialty, they really don't have anything for you. And so I think that that's sort of interesting. And I'm looking at like Dolly Parton and I'm like, oh, with 45 years, we've come farther on. Some things have gotten better. Like, you know, like you can work from home. I can remote in and check the schedule. Talk about a double-edged sword. There you go. Right. But anyway, I think that Ralph was not entirely wrong. And I think that we have moved forward in a lot of ways. And in other ways, we have just moved back. And like, I think it's just a different deal than we had in the past.
Yes.
But I'm not convinced that we have steadily, made ourselves happier. That's for sure.
So it's so funny because today's mailbag is, I feel like it's the tale as old as time. Like, this is going to be one of those episodes where people are like, ooh, Brenda, are they talking about my clinic?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. 100%.
Because, it's summer and it's chaotic, and this episode fits perfectly in because, we got a mailbag that made me think, like, have you been in the clinic on that day when it feels like a hurricane has hit? Like, there's 4 rooms that are full of clients, the phone is ringing off the hook, and you stop and you think, where the hell is Brenda? Where the hell is Andy? Like, this is one of those episodes for everyone who's had that moment of feeling like they're completely alone and they have no idea what's going on, and they're standing in the middle of a hurricane. So it's funny because I agree with you. Like, we make those steps forward, and yet we're still having some of the same conversations and the same challenges that we've had all along. They just might look a little bit different.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think now we can see Brenda on the security cameras. We can just look.
Right.
And we know exactly where Brenda is. She's slowly cleaning a cage while the rest of the practice runs around and freaks out. So that's yes.
Okay, so let me set the stage for everybody. A wonderful mailbag email from someone who has a busy multi-doctor practice. So on the surface, everything is great, right? Their clients' satisfaction is super high. The team seems to get along. They've hired some new people, which is amazing in this climate. All of their numbers are up, but beneath all of the surface good things, there's some tension happening with the team. And a lot of it has to do with a long time assistant on the team that they gave the name Brenda. So she's incredibly sweet, super personable with clients, knows the historical systems inside and out. I think we've all worked with that person who is fantastic. And the challenge with Brenda is that she is excruciatingly slow. And the team's perception is that she frequently disappears and they have no idea where she is. It feels like they're slammed. They got cases coming out their ears, and she's back, like you said, cleaning the cage for 20 minutes while everybody else is running around in eyesight of one another, trying to help. And the perception from the team is that she either doesn't understand the urgency or she's avoiding it altogether. Totally. And so when she's approached, she's always super kind about it, super apologetic, and I'm just trying to stay busy. I want to help everybody, so I'm trying to do the things in the background. And so this manager who wrote in said, I don't know what to do because the super efficient team members are getting visibly resentful. They are just done with her. They are, making comments under their breath. They've had people come to, this manager has had people come to them and say, hey, we're tired of picking up the slack. And so they said, well, she's not doing anything explicitly wrong. She's still working and helping. She's just not contributing in a way that feels equitable to the team, especially when it matters most. And this manager is I feel like this is killing the team spirit. And so their question was, how do I address this team member who feels, invisible to the team, but is causing a visible morale meltdown amongst the team? And they're like, how do I do that without either losing team star players because they're frustrated or losing someone who is a good part of the team in the ways that they do contribute in Brenda. So I thought this was a super fun one. I'm excited to talk.
This is a super fun one. I read this and I had immediate knee-jerk reactions, and I was like, this could be the shortest Uncharted episode ever, because Andy has some certain quirks and Brenda's pushing my buttons.
All right, let's do it. Let's just dive in.
What am I going to say? Let me ask you. You and I have worked for me for 7-8 years. What do you think I'm going to say about this movie?
I can predict the way that I think this episode is gonna come out, and then the bullet points we're gonna hit. But okay. I think it's funny because it is the tale as old as time, because there's always we get questions like this a lot. And I think that the reason you and I laugh about it is because there's always some little things that are different, but when you boil it down, it's still the same conversation over and over again.
Well, and also it's funny. I have to check myself here for a moment, because one of the core values, I would just say, going into this episode, for the people listening, if you haven't heard this, one of my number one core value is work ethic. Like that is just to know about me. And this is why it's important is know thyself and know who you are. And that will tell you a little bit about what your triggers are and what you care about. Also, knowing who your boss is or knowing who your people who report to you are and what their values are. All that's stuff that we hammer on in Uncharted all the time because it's so important to know that stuff.
Yes.
If you have worked for me for more than a month, then you know that like one of my core values is hard work. My father doesn't say goodbye when he leaves. He shakes my hand. Let's see. He shakes my hand and he says, all right, work hard. And that's how I know the conversation is over and he's leaving. And
he's done with you.
And he's done. But he doesn't say goodbye. He says, work hard, and he shakes my hand and he leaves. And so like that's where I come from. Now, that is a double-edged sword. That's something I like that about myself. I wouldn't necessarily change it. I also understand that it's not a core value for other people, and that doesn't make them bad. And also, just because something is really important to me, that doesn't mean that I can jump right to that, you know what I mean, and pull that lever. So when someone comes and says, this person is disappearing when there's hard work to be done, I have to watch myself to not grab my flaming, raging sword of justice, because I have one, just like everybody else does. And what we know about the flaming, raging sword of justice is it's a bad idea. It sets everything on fire. There's collateral damage. Just don't do it. And so the first point of order from me is, Andy, you need to get your head straight and get into a safe place to really think about this and do it. So the first thing I would say is perception is not reality. And that's my first headspace thing is, one, well, I have a question before that. Is this a random thing? Because everybody zones out sometimes. There are 100% times that my wife is running around with our children, trying to get things done. And
you're
I'm,
just like,
100% like I'm reading Ralph Waldo Emerson with my pipe, unaware that the family is trying to go to the dinner, meeting or engagement that we have, whatever. And so we all zone out sometimes.
Totally.
But given the fact that they're writing to us and people are starting to grumble about it, I think that we've moved into the pattern of behaviors. And so I do think that's a big thing of anyone who's listening. Everybody zones out. Everybody misses a trick. Let's not fly off the handle here, so there's that.
Okay, so I'm super excited because as per usual, like we actually are, most of the time you and I feel like are in sync and coming at it from the same way in two different perspectives. Because my first thought was not dissimilar to yours, that you recognized what you value and recognizing that not everybody values it. And that conflict was number one for me from a headspace perspective is like, as a leader, it's okay to feel conflicted because this leader clearly, in the way that they wrote the email, they clearly care about Brenda. They care about the whole team.
And it was
obvious that they cared about both sides. And Brenda's super sweet. She cares about the clients. She's a fixture in the practice. And also, it can be true at the same time that she's driving the team up the freaking wall. And so this manager is like, this feels messy. It feels unfair. And it can feel personal because you're talking about to your point, someone's work ethic, and that has the dangerous line of feeling like it is moral or it is, there's a moral injustice there when someone doesn't believe the same things that you do. And so I think for me that it's okay to feel that conflict. That is totally normal. And being a leader means being able to recognize what you did, which is it's not about picking sides. It's not about saying, well, what I value is more important than what you value. It's about being able to hold two things true at the same time, which is you care about Brenda, she's valued, and also her behavior is impacting the team. And as a leader, that's something you have to do something about.
So that's where I am as well. And so I would say, if you're going, what do we do about this? I'd say, okay, remember that high-performing teams self-regulate. And you guys hear us say that a lot. High-performing teams self-regulate. If you have a high-performing team and one person is not pulling their weight, they will get ejected from the island. Like the other people, especially if you have people who are working hard, kicking butt, and everybody's kicking butt and working hard except Brenda, they're going to run Brenda out. And if you don't do anything about it, it's often the team's going to make Brenda miserable until she leaves. Like they're going to get less and less covert about their dislike. Or some people are going to get so frustrated that they might leave. And then you've lost a high performer because you held on to Brenda. And so I'm not saying that it's Brenda goes or else, but I'm saying this problem has to get addressed. And if it doesn't, things are going to get worse. And the worst, honestly, I don't think you want Brenda to get bullied out of your practice. You know what I mean? And like that might happen. And it's just, as if people are really working hard and one person is not, their patience for that person goes down and down, until the problem resolves itself one way or another. So I would say that. The other thing I'm going to put in headspace here is we often say your job as a leader is to do what is most kind. Mm-hmm. And so if this is how it actually is, what is the most kind thing to Brenda? Is it to not say anything and wait until the team says something or makes their displeasure with her very clear to her? Yes. Is it kind to your team to not do anything or say anything or intervene and let them be frustrated and feel taken advantage of? So I think we can all agree that is not the kind way to go forward. So the kindest way to go forward is to intervene. And also, I don't think you have a choice not to intervene because I think that your team is probably going to draw this situation to a head sooner rather than later if this behavior continues. So that's kind of the headspace that I'm sort of into is like, okay, what is kind? Let's do the kindest thing.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's about compassionate accountability. And so from a headspace perspective, like one of the questions that I would ask myself is it possible that something else is going on here? And what I would say is that our human lizard brains are pre-wired to think about the negative and think about things from a negativity bias perspective. And so, that's where we reach for that flaming, raging sort of justice. Well, Brenda's just lazy. Like she doesn't want, and
she's dodging work. Yes.
Right. She's dodging work. And if I am being truly compassionate leader, it's my job to ask myself better questions, which is, could this mean something else? Could Brenda be someone who is uncomfortable in chaos? Is she a systems person and the lack of systems and structure makes her fall apart? Does she not feel confident? Does she not feel trained? Like there's a million questions that I could ask. And this is where, as a leader, the accountability piece comes in. Instead of assuming why she's doing what she's doing, it's my job to find out why she's doing what she's doing, because it's creating resentment with the team. And so you can't protect her, to your point, you can't protect her at the expense of the rest of the team, because at some point the team isn't going to put up with it anymore. And you're either going to lose good people or you're going to lose her, or both. And so I think being able to ask those questions is really important. And the last piece for me is headspace is while I'm thinking about the team pointing fingers or myself pointing fingers and asking questions of Brenda, one of the other questions I have to ask for myself in terms of accountability is, if I haven't defined for the team what good teamwork looks like when it's chaotic, then I'm letting them fly blind and I'm failing them as a leader. So part of it for me is, look, when it's chaos, when it's the middle of summer, that's when the poop hits the fan and things break down every time. So if there isn't a plan for what happens when it gets really busy, and if people don't know what the expectation is, if the unspoken expectation of the team is that when there's 4 exam rooms, that everybody drops whatever else they're doing and stays in the treatment room until the rooms get cleared out. If I haven't explicitly trained the team to that, then I am letting them fly blind. And so that's the last piece from a headspace perspective is I would ask myself as a leader, is it possible that the team and or Brenda or both have been set up to fail here, and in what ways? And that would be questioning about what are the systems, what are the processes, what has the training looked like for them? And a lot of the time, that's where we can fall short as leader, because we have the best of intentions and or we think we've been clear about it. But when we really look at it, we haven't necessarily been as clear as everybody needs us to be.
Well, it sounds like your last part of Headspace is a whole lot like my first action step.
Okay,
do you know what my first action step is? You gotta get safe. You gotta get safe, right?
Love it.
So get safe. Action step number 1 for me. S, can I sit next to this person and can I smile at them? Now, I'm talking to Brenda about the pattern of behavior, right? If I am raging because my day has just TTS'd on me and I'm looking around and my helper is not freaking here and hasn't been here for an hour. And I am and I'm just looking for someone to blame my frustration on. Right. That's not the time to have this conversation, right?
Right.
Can I sit next to this person? Can I smile at them? Don't give people feedback when you're triggered. It's a bad idea. It's bad for you. It's bad for them. It's not going to go well. And so in the moment that I and or the team are really frustrated. That is when most of these conversations happen, right?
Right.
It's like I am the medical director.
Where were you,
I am the
Brenda?
practice owner. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Because that's what I feel is, where were you?
Yeah.
And that is the wrong time to have a feedback
Yes.
conversation.
Yes.
And so I'm going to bite my tongue. And honestly, that's probably the hardest part of a lot of this. And I would suspect that's the first and probably the largest place that people really shoot themselves in the foot, is they wait until Brenda tries that and disappears on the wrong day. And then we're going to talk to Brenda. And I'm like, that's bad management strategy. And I understand it emotionally. Trust me. Like I said, I could get really irritated about this, but that's the wrong time. So S, can you sit next to them? Can you smile at them? If not, you're triggered and you should probably push this off. A, are you assuming good intent? And I think that's part of what you said at the end of your headspace is, let's assume that she's trying hard. Maybe she just doesn't understand that this is happening. Maybe she's unaware. Maybe she doesn't understand exactly what her job is. Maybe no one has laid out for her what our priorities are.
Right.
And it's funny, like some people, that they're like, if we don't have clean cages, we can't take back any more hospitalized pets.
100%.
And, like, I mean, and just, you go, that's not how I would organize my priorities.
Right.
But again, like, if no one's told her what the priorities are, some people, I don't know, because of their history, whatever, like they come up with a different set of priorities, and they're not bad. They're not trying to spite you. They're working off a different playbook than you are.
Well,
and assuming good intent.
When you step back, like, I can actually appreciate that. Like, we can't take in a hospitalized patient if there's not a clean cage. So when I step back from the emotional of it, could you understand that perspective? I kind of could, and I kind of do appreciate it. But to your point, that's the moment when we need to shift into the prioritization mode, not into the, taking care of everybody mode.
So that's A, is assume good intent. F, has this person been set up to fail? What here is my fault? Have we communicated what is going on? Have we told her that, hey, the team is perceiving this to be true? Have we talked to people about what is expected when things pick up, and and how to communicate when they're going to disappear from the treatment room for an extended amount of time? Have we told them how to clean a cage? And that sounds silly. There's a lot of people who are assistants, maybe even vet techs, who work in practice, and no one has said to them, this is how you clean a cage, and this is about how long it should take, and this is the level of cleanliness that we expect. And they're back there with a toothbrush getting every little thing. And I'm just thinking about ways this person has been set up to fail. They have not understood their job. They haven't understood the expectations. And then here's my fault. Maybe I have said something that's confusing to this person. Maybe I am the one who made them think that, I don't know, that everything was under control when we really could have used their help. I don't know. And then E is, what is the end result? What are we trying to actually accomplish? And so I would go, and my first end result with Brenda is not to make her get her behind in gear. It is to understand what is going on here as best I can find out. So anyway, so that's action step number 1 for me, is safe. Yeah. And so it sounds like our headspace and action steps are starting to bleed together. Do you want to take a break and then kind of walk through more of like, how do we fix this problem?
We said that, I just assumed you said this was going to be the shortest episode ever. I just assumed we were going with it. But yeah, let's do it.
All right, we'll take a break. All right. So for me, the first action step was, you've got to get safe. Yep. And again, assuming good intent, has this person been set up to fail? A lot of people sort of look at me and they go, Andy, you're kind of being naive here. Like, we know what's going on. And I say, look, if you're serious about fixing this problem, then you need to be serious about fixing this problem. It's kind of like sometimes you'll do a home improvement project, right? And something's kind of broken. And so you kind of start to patch on top of it or whatever, and the truth is like, no. If you want to fix this thing, we got to fix it. We need to move the shelves away. Yeah. You know what I mean? We need to cut out the rot. We need to start fresh. Sometimes we need to make it a bigger project before we actually fix the project so that it's done and done right. It's the same thing here, is like, look, you're getting to a place where people are complaining, they're mumbling, they're grumbling, trying to just fix this with a one-on conversation. It's probably the wrong way to approach this project. Fix this thing so it stays fixed. Yes. And so that's what I'm like, I'm going to shake this off. I'm going to get safe. And then I am going to get curious and start with a initial investigation. Yes. And again, like, I'm going to really look into this and give Brenda the benefit of the doubt. But this is the first step down the path. I am going to fix this, and it is going to stay fixed.
Yep.
But I'm going to start open-minded and fair, and I'm going to really try to be open and kind to everybody. Let's assume nothing. Let's work this case up and then get a diagnosis and then get a treatment. And so I'm going to force myself to back into the diagnosis phase to make sure that what the team thinks is right is really what's happening.
Now, I am with you. And normally, like, my go-to is the softer, like, tell me what happened, what was going on for you. Like, I definitely tend to err more on the people side. And I think this is a situation where people often struggle with the clear being kind part. And so for me, this is where I would actually have a really direct but kind conversation. Because if I open it really wide and I'm like, tell me what's going on for you when we have emergencies coming in. How is Brenda supposed to know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So the conversation could go off the rails in a million different ways. So for me, this is where I lean into a tool called SBI, which is the situation, behavior, and impact. So the way that I'm going to frame what I say to her is really, really important, because I want her to be able to, with her eyes shut, understand exactly what I'm asking her about. So I would probably pull her aside, and it doesn't have to be a, hey, let's sit down in my office and have a serious conversation feeling, but it is definitely a, let's have some privacy to kind of talk this through, because I want to be able to look at her and say, hey, Brenda, when we have all of the exam rooms full, and we have an emergency come in like we did yesterday or 2 days ago or whatever, that's the situation, right? And then to tell what the behavior is, I noticed that you were in the treatment room, in the back of the treatment room, cleaning kennels instead of jumping in to help the rest of the team, which is her behavior. And then what is the impact of that? It's okay that the impact wasn't necessarily to me. I can still say to her, the rest of the team felt like they were drowning and picking up extra work. And because they didn't feel like you were helping in the same way as the rest of them. That impacts the morale of the team and the way that they feel. I know that's not your intention, because I know that you care about doing a good job. I know that you care about the clients and the patients and the team as a whole. I suspect you had a different reason for cleaning the kennels. Can you tell me about that? Because I want to know what she was thinking and why she was thinking it. And also, I want us to be able to work together to know, so that you know what stepping up in moments like that looks like in a really positive way, both for me, for my expectations, and for the team as a whole. Because it's really, really important that you open the conversation directly enough that you can set the boundary and that Brenda can know what the support is coming out of the conversation. Because it is important for her to know, if, to your point, if we're not just going to slap a Band-Aid on this, it has to be clear that this is not optional, but also she has to feel approached in a way that doesn't make her feel like she's in trouble. You want her to feel like you are trying to support her. And so this is where, for me, the direct is, and the clear is really important.
Yeah. No, I really like that a lot. I'm totally with you. You have got to be clear about this. And I think that you're probably right. Then probably the number two place that people really shoot themselves in the foot is they're too quote unquote kind, so that they don't give Brenda a clear message about what is really happening.
Yeah. And
then Brenda doesn't change her behavior, which either gets her ultimately fired or run out of the practice, or it continues to frustrate the team.
Yep.
And so your kindness really hacked everybody off, and it did not improve the situation, and honestly let the situation keep going. And so you can really screw yourself over by being too kind here. This is one of those things that I didn't understand early in my career. You know, I wanted people to like me. I didn't want people to be upset by me. And there were times like this where the team was starting to turn on someone, and it was my job to say to that person, look, this is what's happening, and we need to talk about it. And by not having that conversation, I made my life worse, I made that person's life worse, and I made the team unhappy. And so I was really like, sometimes you go, okay, what is truly kind here?
Yes.
And it's to your point, it's to have this conversation and be honest about where we are. Now, I'm going to throw one other thing onto this too, because some people say, oh boy, Andy, this is a hard conversation. And how do you not offend someone when you go and you say, hey, you're dodging cases.
Right.
Or you're being lazy, or you're disappearing. And one of the tools that I really like to use, and I only use this when it's true, you can manage someone by talking to them about what the perception of the team is.
Right.
As opposed to saying, this is what,
This is
what
what's
you're
happening.
doing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're dodging cases. I don't know where you were. I don't know.
Right.
The perception of the team is not just that it happened yesterday, but that this seems to be a regular occurrence. And I would tell them, I'm starting to hear mumbles from the team that this is a pattern, where you're disappearing. I don't know that that's true. I don't know that that's fair.
Right.
But I want to talk to you about what is actually happening. And then I want to work with you to repair that perception, which I think we can absolutely do. But we need to not just change the behavior, but also change the perception of the team. And I'll stop talking there and say, we need to change the perception of the team. And again, this is a good way to talk to people about how their behaviors are impacting others. Again, you only say this if it's true. Don't tell someone the perception of others is blank if that's not what the perception of others is. But it is a way of saying, I'm not saying that you're dodging cases, but the team is perceiving it this way.
Right.
What's actually going on? Where are you? What's happening? And let's figure out what that is first. And then step 2 is, what are we going to do in the future? So
how do we fix it?
So not so that you're not disappearing, but how do we fix it in the future so that the team feels supported and sees you there contributing with them?
Yes.
Because ultimately, that is the end result that is required for this.
The change.
For the change, for this partnership to continue on, for this inclusion team to continue on. And so that's the other part I would throw on top of your SBI, which I think is the right play. I would talk about how the team is perceiving this behavior and manage not just to the behavior itself, but also to making the team feel supported and reducing the impact that you called out.
Yeah. And I think that it's about, setting the expectation too.
Yep.
Like a lot of people might manage to get through the tell me what happened. And then because we as a species in VetMed do not like conflict, where we often struggle is then taking that and saying, okay, moving forward, this is not optional. This is what I have to see happen. Like, this is the change that I need to happen. And that is the last piece that I would layer onto the SBI, which is like, what is going to happen next? And so there's 3 pieces of it for me. The first is with Brenda, setting really clear expectations about what you expect from her behaviorally and what she can expect from you in terms of support. Like, what is the follow-up to this going to look like? Because this is not a one and done conversation. Like, this is going to be a regular coaching occurrence, the opportunity for you to give feedback, to give both positive and redirecting when she falls short, because she's a human. And when we change behaviors and change habits, it takes us time, right? And also, like, we want to catch her doing things right. So we want to reward the progress and that change. So this is going to be an ongoing thing. But also the second piece of this is the follow-up to the rest of the team, because while you don't want to talk about specifics, especially around discipline with another team member to the rest of the team, I think that the team has to know that you see the problem and you're doing something about it. Because the number one source of frustration is when the team feels like they've brought an issue forward and then they hear nothing else. And so the assumption, again, with the negativity bias, is that nobody's doing anything about it. Well, we bring it up, but nobody does anything about it. And so I think for me, after I had the conversation with Brenda, particularly with those team members who came to me directly, I would pull them aside and have the conversation of, it's really simple. It's not even a conversation, just like a few sentences to say, hey, I hear you. I've heard the concerns around the team working together, especially when it's super chaotic, and making sure that it's all hands on deck. I am working on addressing the imbalance that you guys feel, and I'm setting really clear expectations for the whole team so that we all know how we're going to move forward from here. Because that is not, I'm not giving anything away. I'm not naming her by name, but I am being transparent with them. And when you are silent, that breeds resentment from the team. That transparency is what is going to help build trust with the team, that you are putting your money where your mouth is as a leader and doing something about it. Because they won't necessarily see that follow-up. They won't necessarily see that coaching that you're doing with Brenda, particularly if you're doing it privately.
I like this a lot. And here's another part of that conversation I might have. Once we have had this conversation with Brenda about, hey, what's going on? And this is the pattern. This is how this is being perceived. then I'm going to start switching over into a feedback pattern. And I think that's really, really important. Now, if someone if they don't know what they're doing wrong or they don't know how they're being perceived, starting to give them feedback on that behavior can be kind of hard. We have to kind of explain, look, this is what success looks like. Again, if they've been set up to fail and you start giving them negative feedback saying, hey, you're in the wrong place, I need you over here, it can be just confusing for them. And so you've got to have that slate clearing, restart conversation about, look, where are you? What's going on? Let's do some diagnostics here. But once you do that, it's time for us to start giving Brenda some feedback. And so when she disappears, as soon as that behavior occurs, like let's say we have a rush and there's an emergency and we look around and she's not there, I'm going to go after that to Brenda and say, hey, and then I'm going to give her the SBI. Just a moment ago, we had an emergency come in. It was about a half an hour. It was chaotic. And you were not in the treatment room. And that definitely reinforced the perception that we talked about earlier about people feeling like you were disappearing when challenges were coming through the door. What happened?
What happened?
And that's that feedback. Now, whenever I talk about feedback, people immediately hear that as negative feedback. The next time the appointment comes through the door, the emergency comes through the door, and it's chaotic for a half an hour, and Brenda is there, and she's hustling after it's over, I'm going to speak to her in private, and I'm going to say, hey, when that emergency came through the door today, and you jumped in, and you were working with the team, that was excellent. That was exactly what I think the team needs to see. We appreciated having your help, and you were really beneficial to be there. Thank you for doing that. And then I'm going to walk away, and that's going to be all that it is. It's not a big... It's not a big conversation. I don't want it to be bigger than that. That's it. But it's time to start giving Brenda some feedback. I might tag that also onto some of my senior staff members. And so when I say, hey, guys, we're going to start working together, I think peer-to-peer feedback is 100% in bounds. In fact, I'm not there a lot. And so if there's a busy day and things are hopping and Brenda disappears, I have no problem with my lead tech dipping back into the kennels and seeing Brenda back there and saying, hey, Brenda, we're pretty busy. Now would be a good time. If you could come up and help us, please, that would be very helpful. And again, we have had that conversation with Brenda. I feel like it opens that door. I'm totally fine with some peer feedback. And of course, I'm going to sort of invite this from people that I believe will be professional. I would say that, like, hey, guys, if there's someone who's not helping you out, I want you guys to feel empowered to ask them for help and to go and just say, hey, we could really use you. And that's going to lean into this initiative of us collaboratively working together and emphasizing, everybody sort of jumping in when we need help. It's kind of like how you and I always talk about appreciation. And the best way is to have the team appreciate each other so that you're not always on appreciation duty. The same thing can be true here, especially if it's something like this. You say, peer feedback is a skill, but if you've got some leaders and you've got some high performers, as this person says that they do, let's talk to them a little bit about, hey, I'd like to open the door for you guys to give feedback if people are not where they need to be. I'd like you to say that to them.
Yeah.
And so now we're sort of starting to build some consistency around this and sort of go forward from there.
I also think, too, to just tack on to that, like asking them to appreciate, but also I think for protecting your high performers a little bit in terms of recognizing them as well for the hard work.
Yes.
Like they are holding it together. They are going above and beyond. If that is the actuality of the situation and Brenda has been disappearing on them, like that's hard. And that is demoralizing and can be demoralizing for the team. And so appreciating them, building that appreciation helps that morale. Like knowing what you're doing to fix the problem is ultimately what most people want. And also like a little bit of extra appreciation for the ones who are working their butts off is really important here too. Because I think that helps protect the culture.
I think you have to start documenting as well. That doesn't necessarily mean write Brenda up every time an emergency comes in and she's not in the room. But you need to start making some notes. The problem with behaviors like this, and we heard this in the writer's sort of note, was I don't know about writing people up or firing people because they're cleaning cages instead of being here. I was like, you need to go ahead and start documenting what is the real story. And if you start looking back in 3 months and you say, wow, there's been 8 different times that I have jotted down that the team has pointed out they needed help and Brenda was not there. At some point you go, look, this is a pattern of behavior. This is not a one-off thing. And so then you're really talking about a pattern of disappearing when the team needs you. And that is something that we would write people up for, or that we would definitely terminate somebody over. But again, like if you don't write those things down, you have this vague sense that Brenda's never around. And it's hard to give people specific feedback. I want you to be able to say, look, these are the days when there were instances that the team said, you were not around, then it lasts a little while. And so anyway, that's kind of it.
And I think the hard part too is that, to your point, like when you were talking about yourself and kind of not addressing things as a young leader, like we all want to be liked. We all, most of us want people to like us. And so I think for a lot of us, we struggle with feeling like if we hold people accountable that we're punishing people because we're taught that we're using the stick, right? And not a carrot. And so I think we need to dispel that myth for ourselves that you can be a good leader and be a kind leader, and you can still hold people accountable. Like this is getting your head wrapped around, like I said in the beginning, two things can be true at the same time. Like you can love someone, you can care about somebody. I can care about Brenda very deeply, and I could still expect more and need more from her behaviorally. The team could need more from her. That's not being mean. That's not being cruel in any way. Like that is true leadership, is being able to step back and look at those two things and hold them as true at the same time. And so I think that like wrapping your brain around that and doing that Jedi trick is the biggest thing.
I love that you said that. I was really affected by something yesterday. And I was working one-on-one with a very senior veterinary leader.
Okay.
And I was talking to this person kind of about where they were in their career and kind of what their challenges were and things like that. And this person was saying that one of their key sort of personality types is they were very approachable. They were almost like to that point of like, they were very much a go along to get along type person. And they were very easy to deal with until recently. And they had sort of taken like a strength test, a skills test. Okay. And they had shifted away from this, affable trait to a driver trait. Okay. Right. And
being very direct.
Which being defined by being direct or whatever. Yeah. And then this person started to get really emotional. And like I said, what, that's clearly upsetting to you that you feel like you used to be, used to be perceived this way. And now you're being perceived much more as driven, which totally matched with this person's climbing up to this high level of leadership. Like, that they don't have time to worry about what everybody reporting to them thinks. They have to get things done. And I perceive this person as being a very lovely person. And so I said, why does this affect you? And they said, I don't want to be that way. I want to be the nice person. And yet I'm in this position. And we started to have this conversation because it really spoke to me that they felt this way. And my advice ultimately was, you are never going to make everybody happy, and you cannot determine your own success by whether or not people are happy with you or whether everybody likes you. Like, that's not possible. Yeah. What I have found in my life is I was chained down by that until I sat down and said, what do I believe it means to be a good person to work with, to be a good leader, right? What does that mean for me, so that if there's someone who doesn't like me, I can still go to my own self-test and say, okay, this person's unhappy. I made this person cry. Yes. And then I go and say, well, was I a good listener? Was I patient with this person? Did I assume good intent on the part of others? Did I, you know what I mean? Just go on. Did I present myself professionally? Did I try to empathize? And if I did all those things, I'm sorry this person cried.
Right. Sometimes that's what happens.
But that is kind of what happens. And I hope people listening don't think I'm being heartless. But I think at some point you have got to figure out your own. I hope nobody dislikes me.
The takeaway is going to be that Andy makes everybody cry.
100%. The takeaway is Andy is a heartless monster.
For the record, Andy makes somebody cry.
Don't you cry. And so, it's... But I hope my real message is coming through here, and that like you do have to figure out like what do you serve and what do you believe, and at some point you can't decide you're a good person because no one dislikes you and you've never made anyone cry. And I go, boy, if you run a practice and you've never made anyone cry, then you're not running a practice. It's like it's running you. And again, I'm not celebrating making people cry. But crying, I'm trying to normalize it because crying happens. It's a human emotion. It comes from frustration.
It's not good or bad.
Sadness.
It's just the thing. It's so funny because I was teasing, and like I say, it is true that Andy makes me cry, but it's not because you're doing anything wrong. Like I cry at every Uncharted event because I'm sad, because I feel so happy and I love everyone, and it fills my bucket. And walking away from that makes me sad. And also it's just like the letdown. And I know that it's going to happen and it doesn't matter. But every time something will happen and something will get said and it will make me cry, it has nothing to do with you. And I think I love that you said that. And that's why I was teasing about it, because I don't look at it and say, well, Andy makes me cry. You might be the trigger, or you might say something or tease me in a way that makes me cry, but it has nothing to do with you. And I think that this is very much true, that we look at it and we think that it's negative.
Or call me names or shout profanities at me.
No, you
but that doesn't make me cry.
Go home, Goss. And then I'm going to cry because I don't want to go home, damn it. I want to have more fun.
I think that's sort of putting some headspace at the end there. But I do think that's important. It affected me yesterday. And I say this story.
I think it's true because we all want to be liked.
Well, I think we all want to be liked. And there are people who have literally hundreds of people that answer up the chain to them. Yeah. That wrestle with this of saying, I don't want to make people cry, or I don't want to be disliked, or I don't want people to be unhappy. And also I have these massive responsibilities. And I say, there is some internal work here to be done as a leader, I think. And you really do have to dig into what your values are. Yes. And what do you think it means to be a good boss? And it cannot be everybody likes me all the time. That's a ridiculous metric. It's got to be, did I hear both sides of the story? Did I assume good intent? Did I empathize? You know, did I support the values and the needs of all of the teams? Did I support the needs of our patients? And if you did those things, and that means that someone gets bad news that they don't like, I'm sorry that they're crying, but you're not a bad person. And you have to be able to go home and sleep soundly with that.
Yeah,
so anyway,
totally.
I think how does this end? I think it could end a couple of ways. I think the most likely way this ends, I'm just going to be honest here, is if you do have somebody and the perceptions of the team are accurate, and I don't have any reason to think that they're not. Sometimes, and you guys have seen this, sometimes there's a rumor that starts or a narrative, and it's not fair. It's not a fair story. But once it gets put out there, confirmation bias kicks in, and every time anybody looks around, and Brenda's not standing in the room, they're like, look, she's gone again. I go, that's not fair. That's ridiculous. Yeah. And so sometimes I do find those stories, and then sometimes we have to go and talk to people who are perpetuating those stories and say, I heard what you said, and I have looked into this, and I have been watching, and I'm not convinced you're being fair to Brenda. Yeah. And I've called people on that before. And again, I don't do it in like you're busted. And it's like, I got to tell you, I'm not convinced you're being fair to Brenda. Right. And I'm going to ask you to give her another chance and wipe the slate clean and support her. And honestly, I found that most people are willing to do that if you approach them the right way. Yeah. And so it is possible that we discover that this is not really a fair narrative. There are some minor things that we can change. I hope that that's the case. And I've turned this around. It's also quite possible, and I would say probably at least equally possible, that Brenda's going to quit. And I hate to say it, but if it's true that this person disappears when the hard work shows up and they kind of find a way away, once the team catches on to this, as I said, high-performing teams self-regulate, which means they're going to start to make Brenda's life a little bit harder. And now Brenda's boss is saying, hey, I really need you to be around when the hard work is getting done. It's quite possible that she's going to go find somewhere else to work. And you should be fine with that outcome, right? This is all about choosing how you suffer. And that's all it is in a leader is, do you want to suffer by continuing to have Brenda here and having the staff get more and more resentful of her? Yeah. Or do you want to suffer by having to replace her? I would rather suffer by having to replace her. I'd really like to suffer by having the conversation with her, and then she changes her behaviors and we sort of clean up some misperceptions, and then we all go forward happily. That's my first option. But if that's not on the table,
and you can't
then
control
I would
that.
rather suffer. Exactly right. And you can't control
like that's on her.
If the options are make this keep going and have building resentment from the team, or let's part ways, and then you have to go through a period of working shorthanded and finding a replacement. I know which way I'm choosing, because one of them is short-term suffering and the other one's long-term, and it's only going to escalate over time. So that's an easy choice for me.
Agreed. I love it. Well, as usual, this was a fun conversation. Thanks for, it was a day we were on the same page.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that was good. I think it's a good old mixture of grouchy Andy saying, "I'm not, we're gonna manage this person. If they can't be here, they're gonna be gone." And Stephanie going, "Let's talk about how they feel.
Let's talk about feelings.
Let's talk about their feelings. Let's talk about the fact that when I need help and you're cleaning the cages, you and me are gonna have a problem anyway."
There's a time and the place.
100%. 100%. I want to thank you for keeping me off of the front porch, shaking my fist at the children in my yard. That's what I want to thank you for today.
Oh, have a great week, everyone.
All right, everybody. See you later. And that's what we got. Guys, thanks for being here. I hope this was helpful. Always enjoy going to the mailbag. If you guys have questions for me and Stephanie, send them to us. The email address is podcast@unchartedvet.com. That's podcast@unchartedvet.com. And we would love to hear what's going on with you. Until then, gang, take care of yourselves, everybody. We'll talk to you later.